Borada, good morning. I've remembered it's midweek. The diary is bursting. The job list is growing. It doesn't matter how fast I cross one thing off, two more seem to get added. I quite like it that way. Don't tell anybody. But I've actually remembered to come on and record something. So thank goodness for that. My brain isn't completely atrophying. How are you? I'm just starting to do Christmas preparation. In fact, I'm sort of knee deep in it, really. I like to get everything at least partially organised before December so that I know exactly what's coming. And then I like to do as much prep as I can way before the event so that I can enjoy it too. If you're having to write a sermon the day, if you're having to write a sermon the day before something, then it feels like too much pressure. So I do try and get everything organised and sorted, ready. So I'm knee deep in all of that, and I'm thinking about the people that the services are for and the events are for, and realising that Christmas, as we know, is a time when lots and lots of people come to church who aren't week by week attenders. They're still regular church people because they come regularly at Christmas or Mothering Sunday or Harvest, so they've definitely got a regularity about them. Christmas is one of those things that means something to them spiritually, so they come to church. And then there's a huge responsibility to make sure that what we then do in church feels relevant to the rest of the year and is accessible in terms of the language and the style of the service. And we have to do all that in the context of then not letting down the people that come week by week and are more used to the rhythms or the routines of our liturgy. And kind of holding that tension between those that are fresh at it and those that are quite long in the tooth at it. And it's interesting because if you're long in the tooth doesn't necessarily mean that you know it all. And it just, how do we open up all of that so that it works for everybody? So I'm thinking very carefully about the wording of prayers and which version of the Bible to use for different things. And that is a really tricky point, and that's kind of what I was thinking I might share with you today, because some of the bits of the Bible are so beautiful in the older language, particularly some of the Christmas readings. And I know people get very attached to the King James Version of various bits and bobs. And some of the Psalms, it's the same. And particularly at funerals for older people, I'm careful about which version of the Psalms I use, so that it might be the one that I know that person would have prayed when they were growing up in church. And that's all very well, that beauty and that rhythm and the sort of poetic nature, particularly of the Psalms. But do we understand them when they're still in that older English and when we're using vocabulary that's probably changed its meaning over the decades and centuries? I don't know. So I'm going to read you today Psalm 121, which is one of my favourite psalms, but I'm going to read it to you from the Message, so it's going to be in very modern English. So it kind of changes the poeticness of it, but it nails the meaning. And I think perhaps there's a balance sometimes that we have to have the modern to understand it and the older to feel the song, that it can be scripture. I don't have a foot in either camp in terms of which I think is right or wrong. I think both have their places, and I think this Christmas we will use a mixture so that we are confident that we've met everybody's needs, but also so that we sometimes hear things differently, and that might help us with meaning, or it might help us with settling and sitting. So are you ready to hear Psalm 121 read in a more modern style? I look up to the mountains. Does my strength come from mountains? No, my strength comes from God, who made heaven and earth and mountains. He won't let you stumble. Your guardian God won't fall asleep, not on your life. Israel's guardian will never doze or sleep. God's your guardian, right at your side to protect you, shielding you from sunstroke, sheltering you from moonstroke. God guards you from every evil. He guards your very life. He guards you when you leave and when you return. He guards you now. He guards you always. It's rather lovely, isn't it? It's just one of the psalms that perhaps doesn't lose all its poetry for being in more modern language, but it nails the meaning. And I hope it will bring you some comfort today and just remind you that whatever's going on in your life, there is a loving God who has got your back and your front and both of your sides. Have a good day, won't you? You know where I am. Lots of love and God bless. Bye-bye.